The alarm bells rang through the massive warship. Admiral Kethvara moved quickly through the metal halls on her 4 long legs. Her crystal skin caught the blue light from the walls. She had been in charge of the Third Fleet for 20 years. Nothing surprised her anymore, but today felt different. "Report," she said as she entered the command center. The room was huge, filled with screens and control panels. Dozens of her crew worked at their stations. They all had the same crystal. Skin as her, but different colors: blue, green, purple. The Zephyrian Empire had many worlds. Commander Yelton turned to face her. His skin was dark blue, almost black. "Admiral, we have detected an unknown ship at the edge of our territory. It appeared 3 hours ago." Kethvara walked to the main screen. It showed a map of space around them. A red dot blinked at the very edge. "Show me." The screen changed. Now it showed a strange object floating in the darkness of space. Kethvara had seen thousands of ships in her career. This one made no sense. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "We believe it is a spacecraft, Admiral, but our sensors cannot read it properly. The hull appears to be made of simple metal, iron, and steel, mostly very primitive materials." Kethvara stared at the image. The ship looked like someone had welded pieces of metal together. It had no smooth curves like proper starships. Instead, it was all straight lines and sharp angles. It looked rough and ugly. "How big is it?" "About 300 meters long. Much smaller than our ships. Weapons? Unknown. Our scans cannot get through the hull, but Admiral, there is something else." Something very strange. Kethvara waited. "The ship is moving faster than our fastest scouts, but we cannot detect any energy from its engines. No heat, no radiation, nothing. It is as if the ship moves by magic. This was impossible. Every ship in the galaxy used some form of energy drive. Plasma engines, quantum tunnels, dark matter manipulators. All of them left traces that sensors could detect. But this ship gave off nothing. Could our sensors be broken? "We have checked them 3 times, Admiral. They work perfectly." Kethvara thought for a moment. In her 20 years of command, she had met many alien species. Some were more advanced than the Zephyrians. Others were still learning to build simple rockets. But all of them followed the same basic rules of physics. This ship seemed to ignore those rules. "Try to contact them." "We have been trying for 2 hours, Admiral. No response." "Keep trying. And prepare a boarding party. If they will not talk, we will go to them." Just then the communication officer called out, "Admiral, we are receiving a signal. Put it on screen." The image of the strange ship was replaced by an even stranger sight. A creature sat in what looked like a simple chair. It had only 2 arms and 2 legs. Its skin was not crystal-like theirs, but soft and pink. Hair grew from the top of its head. Most shocking of all, it had only 2 eyes. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the Earthship Persistence. Can you understand me?" Kethvara was silent for a moment. The creature spoke in perfect galactic standard, the common language used by all spacefaring civilizations. But how did it learn their language? "This is Admiral Kethvara of the Imperial Dreadnought Sovereign's Will. You are in Zephyrian space." "State your purpose here." The creature smiled. This was strange too. Zephyrians did not show emotions on their faces like this. "We come in peace, Admiral. We are explorers from a planet called Earth. We are looking for other intelligent life in the galaxy. We mean no harm." "Earth?" Kethvara had never heard of this world. "What sector is your homeworld in?" "We call it the Sol System. It is about 26,000 light years from here, toward the galaxy center." This made no sense. That area of space had been mapped long ago. There were no advanced civilizations there. Only primitive worlds with simple life forms. That is impossible. Our charts show no spacefaring species in that region. Your charts might be old, Captain Chun said. "We only developed faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. We are new to space." 50 years? The Zephyrians had been traveling between stars for over 10,000 years. Most civilizations took at least 1,000 years to develop proper space technology. How could these humans do it so quickly? Captain Chen, your ship appears to violate several laws of physics. Our sensors cannot understand how it works, the human laughed. Another strange behavior. I get that a lot. Our technology is probably different from yours. We had to make do with what we could find on our world. Before Kethvara could ask more questions, alarms began ringing again. This time they were different alarms. Combat alarms. Admiral, Commander Yelton called out. We have multiple ships approaching fast. They are not responding to our signals. The main screen changed again. Now it showed 5 ships moving toward them at high speed. Kethvara recognized them immediately. They were Kornak pirate vessels. Black metal hulls covered in spikes and weapon ports. The Kornak were raiders who attacked merchant ships and small colonies. Battle stations, Kethvara ordered. All crews to combat positions. The lights in the command center turned red. Crew. Members ran to their stations. Weapon systems came online. The massive dreadnought prepared for battle. Captain Chun, Kethvara said to the screen. You should leave this area immediately. Pirates are approaching. They will attack anything they see. We appreciate the warning, Admiral, but we will not. Run from bullies. Your ship is small and primitive. You cannot fight 5 Kornak raiders. Maybe, but we will not leave you to face them alone. Kethvara was shocked. This tiny ship with its strange crew was willing to fight beside them. It made no sense. The smart thing would be to run. The Kornak ships came closer. They were fast and deadly. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Kethvara had fought them before. They were cruel and vicious, but they were also skilled warriors. Open fire, she ordered. The Sovereign's will unleashed its plasma cannons. Bright blue beams shot across space toward the pirate ships. The Kornak vessels dodged and weaved, avoiding most of the shots. Those that hit were absorbed by their energy shields. The pirates fired back. Red energy bolts slammed into the dreadnought's shields. Warning lights flashed as the shield generators worked harder. Through all of this, the small human ship seemed to be doing nothing. It just floated there, watching the battle. Captain Chun, Kethvara called. If you are going to help, now would be a good time. Already on it, came the reply. Suddenly the human ship began to move. But it did not move like other ships. Instead of graceful curves and smooth acceleration, it moved in sharp, quick bursts, like it was being pushed by explosions. The strangest part was the sound. Even in the vacuum of space, Kethvara could hear something through her ship's sensors. A loud, rhythmic pounding. Thump, thump, thump. It sounded like primitive drums. What is that noise? Commander Yelton asked Dot before anyone could answer. The human ship opened fire. What came out was not energy beams or plasma bolts. Instead, solid metal objects shot from the ship at incredible speed. They were simple chunks of metal, but they moved faster than anything Kethvara had ever seen. The first pirate ship took 3 hits to its side. The metal projectiles punched right through its energy shields like they were not there at all. They tore holes in the hull and kept going. Coming out the other side, the pirate ship exploded. Impossible, whispered Yelton. The human ship kept firing. More solid projectiles shot across space. The Kornak pirates tried to dodge, but the metal chunks were too fast. Another pirate ship took a direct hit to its engine section. It broke, apart in a ball of fire. How are they doing that? Kethvara asked. Energy shields should stop solid projectiles easily. I do not know, Admiral. It makes no sense. The remaining 3 pirate ships focused their fire on the human vessel. Dozens of energy bolts hit it at the same time. But instead of being destroyed, the human ship seemed to absorb the hits. Its hull glowed red-hot, but it did not break apart. Their armor is made of simple metal, Yelton said, staring at his readings. How can it withstand that much energy? The human ship fired again. This time, something different came out. It looked like a small rocket, but it moved strangely. Instead of flying straight, it curved through space, chasing after one of the pirate ships. It is following them, Kethvara said in amazement. The rocket caught up to the pirate ship and exploded. The blast was small, but it hit at exactly the right spot on the hull. The pirate ship lost power and began to drift. The last two Corneck vessels decided they had seen enough. They turned and ran, disappearing into hyperspace. The battle was over. Kethvara stared at the screen. In less than 10 minutes, this small, primitive human ship had done what her massive dreadnought struggled to do. It had defeated Corneck pirates using weapons that should not work. "Captain Chun," she said slowly. "How?" The human smiled again. "Simple physics, Admiral. Sometimes the old ways work best." "But your weapons, they are just pieces of metal." "Very fast pieces of metal. We accelerate them using controlled explosions. Chemical reactions, nothing fancy." "And your armor?" "Steel and ceramic plates, layered and angled to deflect energy. Again, nothing fancy." Kethvara did not understand. These were ancient technologies. Every civilized species had moved beyond such primitive methods thousands of years ago. Yet somehow the humans made them work better than advanced weapons. "Captain Chen, would you be willing to meet in person? The Empire would like to learn more about your people." "Of course, Admiral. We came here looking for friends. I think we found some." As Kethvara prepared for the first formal contact with humanity, she had no idea how much this meeting would change everything. The galaxy was about to discover that sometimes the most advanced solution was also the simplest one. The human ship Persistence moved closer to the massive dreadnought. Its crude metal hull and primitive design looked like something from a museum. But Kethvara would never again mistake simple for weak. In the depths of space, two very different civilizations were about to meet. Neither one knew that this moment would reshape the entire galaxy. Dr. Velther stepped off the shuttle and looked around in confusion. This was supposed to be a human colony, but everything looked wrong. The buildings were simple boxes made of concrete and metal. No flowing curves or energy fields. No floating platforms or gravity manipulators. Just plain structures sitting on the ground like rocks. "Are you sure this is the right place?" he asked his assistant Nimara. "Yes, Doctor. This is New Geneva, the main human settlement in this sector." Velther shook his head. As the Empire's top scientist, he had visited colonies across the galaxy. They all looked similar, clean white buildings that floated above the ground, connected by energy bridges. This place looked like it was built by primitives. A human walked toward them. It was tall and thin, with brown skin and black hair. Like all humans, it had only 2 arms and 2 legs. Velther still found this disturbing. How could they do complex work with so few limbs? "Dr. Velther? I'm Dr. James Park, the colony's chief scientist. Welcome to New Geneva." "Thank you," Velther replied. He looked around again. "This is different from what I expected," Dr. Park laughed. "I know it doesn't look like much. We build with whatever materials we can find locally. Concrete, steel, glass. Simple, but effective." They walked toward the largest building. Velther noticed that the humans did not glide smoothly like his people. Instead, they moved by putting one foot in front of the other, over and over. It looked awkward and inefficient. "Dr. Park, I have come here to study your technology. The Empire is very curious about how your weapons work." "Of course. I've prepared several demonstrations for you. But I should warn you, our technology might seem backwards compared to yours." They entered the building. Inside, Velther saw more confusion. The humans sat in simple chairs at flat tables. They looked at small rectangular screens and pressed buttons with their fingers. No neural interfaces or thought-controlled systems. Everything was manual. "This is our computer center," Dr. Park said proudly. Velther stared at the primitive machines. "These are computers?" "Yes, each one can perform billions of calculations per second, but they are so crude." "Where are the quantum crystals?" "The neural networks? We don't use those. These run on silicon chips and electric current, binary logic, ones and zeros." This made no sense. Every advanced civilization used quantum computers that could process multiple realities at once. These human machines could only think in simple yes or no terms. Yet somehow they worked faster than quantum systems. Dr. Park showed him to a small room filled with weapons. Velther recognized some of them from the battle reports. Simple metal tubes with moving parts inside. "This is a rifle," Dr. Park said, picking up one of the weapons. "It fires solid projectiles using chemical explosives. May I examine it?" Of course. Velther took the weapon carefully. It was heavy and cold. He could see mechanical parts through openings in the metal. Springs, gears, small pieces that moved when he pulled the trigger. It was like looking at ancient clockwork. "You create explosions inside the weapon?" "Small ones. The explosion pushes a metal bullet down the barrel at high speed. Simple physics. But the weapon could explode in your hands." "Sometimes they do." "That's why we make them strong and test them carefully." Velther was amazed. Every other species had moved beyond chemical weapons centuries ago. They were dangerous, unpredictable, and limited. Energy weapons were safer and more powerful. Yet human chemical weapons had defeated Cornic energy shields. "Dr. Park, how do your projectiles penetrate energy barriers?" "Energy shields are designed to stop energy, right? Our bullets are just matter moving very fast. The shields don't know how to deal with that." It was so simple that it was brilliant, or so primitive that it was insane. Velther could not decide which. They moved to another room. This one contained vehicles. But again, they were nothing like what Velther expected. Instead of smooth hovercars, he saw crude machines with round wheels. "These are automobiles," Dr. Park explained. "We use them for transportation. They touch the ground?" "Yes, the wheels roll along the surface." Velther looked underneath one of the vehicles. He saw a large metal block connected to many moving parts. "What is this?" "The engine. It burns fuel to create power." "You create explosions in your vehicles too?" "Controlled explosions. Hundreds of them per minute. The explosions push pistons that turn the wheels." This was madness. The humans put bombs inside their transportation and rode on top of them. Any sensible species would use gravity manipulators or magnetic levitation. Safe, clean, efficient. "Are they not dangerous?" "Sometimes. But we've been using internal combustion engines for over 100 years. We know how to make them reliable." Dr. Park started the engine. Velther jumped back as the machine began making loud noises. It sounded like continuous explosions, which he realized was exactly what it was. "Why do you not use gravity control or magnetic systems?" "We don't know how to make those yet. This works, so we keep using it." They spent the next hour examining human technology. Every device was the same, crude, mechanical, based on simple physics. Yet they all worked remarkably well. The humans showed him their power systems. Instead of fusion reactors or zero-point extractors, they used rotating machines driven by steam or burning coal. Primitive, but effective. Their communication systems used radio waves instead of quantum entanglement. Limited by the speed of light, but able to reach anywhere in a star system, their medical equipment used chemistry instead of nanomachines. They put chemical compounds into their bodies to fight disease. It sounded like poisoning themselves, but somehow it made them healthier. "Dr. Park," Velther said finally, "I do not understand. Your technology is thousands of years behind ours, yet in many ways it performs better. How is this possible?" Dr. Park sat down and thought for a moment. "Maybe because we had to make do with what we had? Earth didn't have exotic materials or energy sources. We had iron, carbon, silicon, and a few other elements. We learned to use them very, very well." "But surely you could improve your designs now that you have access to advanced materials." "We could, but why fix something that isn't broken? Our weapons work, our vehicles work, our computers work. Sometimes simple is better." Velther spent the next 2 weeks studying everything the humans would show him. The more he learned, the more confused he became. Human weapons were crude but devastatingly effective. Their armor was primitive but incredibly tough. Their vehicles were simple but nearly indestructible. Most puzzling of all were their handheld devices. Dr. Park showed him something called a flashlight. It was just a metal tube with a light source inside. But when Velther tried to understand how it worked, he found layers of complexity. The light came from a device called an LED, a piece of specially treated silicon that converted electricity to photons. The electricity came from chemical batteries that used metal reactions to generate power. The control system used tiny electronic circuits etched onto silicon wafers. Each part was simple, but together they created a device that was more reliable than advanced Zephyrian light generators. "How long will this flashlight work?" Velther asked. "This model?" "About 50 hours of continuous use. Then you replace the batteries. And the light source?" "The LED should last about 20 years. Velther was shocked. Zephyrian light generators lasted only a few years before their quantum crystals degraded. They required expensive maintenance and rare materials. This human device used common elements and worked longer. On his last day at the colony, Velther made a disturbing discovery. He was examining a human computer when he realized something. The machine was processing information faster than his own quantum tablet. "Dr. Park, how is this possible?" "Your computer uses binary logic. It can only process one calculation at a time. Our quantum systems process multiple possibilities simultaneously." "True, but our computers are very, very fast at processing those simple calculations. And we've learned to break complex problems into millions of simple steps. But quantum computers should be infinitely more powerful." "In theory, yes, but quantum systems are fragile. They need perfect conditions to work. Our computers are robust. They work in any environment." Dr. Park showed him the computer's specifications. It could perform 2 billion calculations per second, continuously, for years without maintenance. Velther's quantum tablet was more sophisticated, but it was also temperamental and required frequent recalibration. That night, Velther sat in his quarters writing his report. How could he explain this to the Empire? Human technology violated everything they knew about technological development. Every other species in the galaxy had followed the same path. First, they mastered energy manipulation. Then they developed exotic materials. Finally, they learned to use quantum effects and dimensional physics. Humans had skipped all of that. They had taken the simplest possible approach to every problem and perfected it beyond all reason. Their weapons were just metal pieces thrown very fast, but they threw them faster and more accurately than anyone thought possible. Their armor was just layered materials, but they had learned exactly how to layer them for maximum protection. Their computers were just electrical switches, but they had made those switches incredibly small and fast. The result was technology that looked primitive but worked better than advanced systems. Velther finished his report and prepared to return to the capital. He had come here thinking he would study primitive aliens and their crude tools. Instead, he had discovered something that would change how the Empire thought about science and engineering. As his shuttle lifted off from New Geneva, Velther looked down at the simple, concrete buildings. They looked as crude as ever. But now he understood that sometimes the most advanced solution was also the most basic one. The humans had not failed to develop sophisticated technology. They had succeeded in making simple technology incredibly sophisticated. And that, Velther realized, might be more impressive than anything the galaxy had ever seen. His report would shake the Empire's scientific community to its core. For the first time in their history, they would have to consider that they are advanced. Technology might not be the best technology. Sometimes the old ways were not just good enough. Sometimes they were better. The emergency council meeting was chaos. Admiral Kethvara had never seen the Empire's leaders so frightened. Holographic displays showed the same terrible news from across their territory. Red markers indicated fallen worlds. Yellow markers showed planets under attack. Only a few green markers remained, worlds that were still free. "How many ships have we lost?" Emperor Zarthik asked. His crystal skin had turned dark purple with stress. "Over 60% of the fleet, Your Majesty," replied Defense Minister Kelanova. The sectar bioweapons are unlike anything we have faced before. Explain. General Morvik stepped forward. His battle armor was scarred from recent fighting. The sectar have created living warships. They are not built, they are grown. When our plasma weapons hit them, they absorb the energy and become stronger. When we use particle beams, they adapt their skin to deflect them. Our most powerful weapons make them more dangerous. What about their ground forces? Even worse. Their soldier creatures can survive direct hits from our energy weapons. They heal from wounds in minutes. They seem to learn from every battle, becoming harder to kill each time we fight them. Emperor Zarthik was silent for a long moment. The sectar had been the Empire's enemy for centuries, but this was different. They had never been this powerful before. What do our scientists recommend? Dr. Velther spoke up from his position near the back of the room. Your Majesty, I believe we need to try a different approach. Our energy weapons are useless against enemies that eat energy. Perhaps we should consider more primitive methods. You mean the humans? Yes, Your Majesty. Their technology operates on completely different principles. Where we use energy, they use matter. Where we use complex systems, they use simple ones. The sectar bioforms have never faced anything like human weapons. General Morvik shook his head. With respect, Doctor, the humans have only a few dozen ships. We need thousands to fight the sectar. Perhaps quantity is not the answer, Veltha replied. Perhaps we need the right kind of weapon instead of more weapons. The Emperor considered this. 3 months ago, he would have laughed at the idea of asking primitives for help. But 3 months ago, the Empire was not losing a war. Send a message to the humans, ask for their assistance. 2 days later, Colonel Marcus Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the human carrier ship Indomitable. Around him, his crew prepared for battle. They were all volunteers, men and women who had left their families to help a distant alien empire fight an unknown enemy. Colonel, called his communications officer, we're receiving a signal from Admiral Kethvara. Put her on screen. The Zephyrian Admiral appeared on the main display. Her crystal skin looked tired, and Marcus could see stress in her 4 eyes. Colonel Rodriguez, thank you for coming. The situation is very bad. The sectar have taken 3 more worlds since we called for help. We're here now, Admiral. What can you tell us about the enemy? They use biotechnology exclusively. Living ships, living weapons, living armor. Everything they have is organic and can adapt to our attacks. Marcus nodded. He had studied the reports during the journey from Earth. The sectar sounded like a nightmare enemy, creatures that evolved in real time to counter whatever was used against them. What's our target? The world of Altair Prime. It has been under siege for 6 days. The population is hiding in underground shelters, but they won't last much longer. We need to break the blockade and destroy the sectar ground forces. How? Many enemy ships? 15 biocruisers, each one the size of a small moon, plus hundreds of smaller attack creatures. Marcus looked at his own fleet. 12 human warships and 2 supply vessels. They were outnumbered more than 10 to 1. Admiral, are you sure you want us to do this? Those aren't good odds. Kethvara's expression was grim. Colonel, if you cannot do it, then no one can. We have already lost 2 fleets trying to retake Altair Prime. Understood? We'll handle it. The human fleet moved toward Altair Prime at maximum speed. As they approached the planet, Marcus could see the enemy forces on his screens. The sectar bioships looked like enormous sea creatures floating in space. Their hulls rippled and moved, like living skin. Gun ports opened and closed like breathing mouths. Gross, muttered his weapons officer, Lieutenant Chun. They look like giant space whales. Ugly space whales, agreed Marcus. But let's see how tough they really are. All ships load kinetic rounds and prepare to fire. The human fleet opened fire first. Instead of bright energy beams, solid metal projectiles shot across space at incredible speed. The sectar bioships tried to dodge, but the tungsten rods were too fast. The first impacts were devastating. The dense metal rods punched through the organic hulls like bullets through paper. Green blood sprayed into space as the bioships screamed in frequencies that human sensors could barely detect. Direct hits on targets 1 through 8, reported Lieutenant Chun. They're bleeding badly. But the sector ships were not finished. Their hulls began to change, growing thicker and developing hard plates where the kinetic rounds had hit. They were adapting to the human weapons in real time. Target. The same spots, Marcus ordered. Don't let them finish adapting. More kinetic rounds slammed into the wounded bioships. The creatures tried to grow new armor, but the human weapons were too fast. Before they could finish changing, new projectiles tore through their hulls. 3 bioships exploded in clouds of organic matter. 2 more lost power and began drifting helplessly. The remaining sector ships fought back. They fired living projectiles, creatures that looked like giant insects with razor-sharp claws. These biomissiles could change direction in flight, hunting down their targets like predators, but human point defense systems were ready. Rapid-fire cannons filled space with metal fragments. The biomissiles were shredded before they could reach their targets. Their weapons can't get through our defensive fire, reported Lieutenant Chun. The living missiles are too fragile. The space battle lasted only 30 minutes. When it was over, all 15 sector bio-cruisers had been destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had taken minor damage, a few hull breaches and some burned-out sensors. Well, that was easier than expected, Marcus said. Now, for the ground forces, landing on Altair Prime was more difficult. The sector had covered the planet with their warrior creatures. These beings looked like a cross between giant insects and armored dinosaurs. They had multiple legs, razor-sharp claws, and thick armor plates covering their bodies. Human dropships landed outside the capital city. As the doors opened, Marcus could see the enemy forces moving toward them. Hundreds of warrior creatures scuttled across the landscape like a living tide. "Remember your training?" Marcus called to his troops. "These things are tough, but they're still made of meat and bone. Aim for the joints and weak spots." The human soldiers were wearing powered armor, mechanical suits that made them stronger and faster. The armor was crude compared to Zephyrian equipment, but it was also much simpler and harder to break. The sector warriors attacked first. They moved incredibly fast, leaping over obstacles and climbing walls like spiders. Their claws could cut through steel, and their armor could deflect most energy weapons, but they had never faced human projectile weapons. The soldiers opened fire with their assault rifles. High-velocity bullets struck the charging creatures, punching through their armor at the weak spots. The warriors screamed and fell, their green blood soaking into the ground. Some creatures survived the initial hits and kept charging. But human weapons fired very fast, putting multiple rounds into each target until it stopped moving. "These bullets really work," called Sergeant Kim over the radio. "The creatures can't adapt fast enough." The battle moved into the city streets. Sector warriors tried to use buildings for cover, but human weapons could shoot through most materials. Concrete and metal provided no protection against high-powered rifles. Marcus led a squad toward the city center, where the largest group of civilians was hiding. They had to fight through dozens of enemy creatures, but the result was always the same. Human weapons killed sector warriors faster than they could adapt. "Colonel," called his radio operator, "we're getting reports from other landing zones. All human forces are advancing successfully. Enemy resistance is collapsing." But the strangest victory came from an unexpected source. The human cyber warfare specialists had been trying to disrupt sector communications. These creatures used bio-neural networks, living computers made of brain tissue. The aliens had always assumed these biological systems were unhackable. They were not electronic, so conventional computer viruses should not affect them, but human hackers had a different approach. Instead of trying to attack the hardware, they attacked the logic patterns. They created simple programs that found flaws in how the biocomputers processed information. "It's working," reported Technical Sergeant Walsh from her mobile command station. "Their neural networks are crashing." The warrior creatures are losing coordination. Across the battlefield, sector forces began acting confused. Some warriors attacked their own allies. Others wandered in circles or stood motionless. Their perfect biological coordination had been destroyed by simple computer viruses. Within 6 hours, the battle for Altair Prime was over. Every Sectar warrior on the planet had been killed or had fled. The human forces had suffered only light casualties. Admiral Kefvara arrived on the planet the next day. She walked through the battlefield with Colonel Rodriguez, looking at the destroyed enemy forces. "I do not understand," she said. "The Sectar warriors could survive direct hits from our most powerful plasma cannons. How do your bullets kill them so easily?" "Same reason our ships worked in space," Marcus replied. "Their biology is designed to handle energy attacks. Living tissue can absorb and redirect energy, but it can't adapt to physical trauma fast enough. A high-velocity bullet does mechanical damage that no amount of evolution can ignore. And the cyber attack. Their biocomputers are very sophisticated, but they still process information using logical patterns. We found flaws in those patterns and exploited them. It doesn't matter if a computer is made of silicon or brain tissue, bad logic is bad logic." Kefvara stopped walking and looked at a destroyed Sectar warrior. The creature had been hit by dozens of bullets, and its armor showed no signs of adaptation. "Colonel, your people have done something remarkable here. You have defeated an enemy that we could not even fight effectively." "We had advantages," Marcus admitted. "Our weapons work differently than yours. The Sectar had never seen anything like them. But there is more to it than that. Your soldiers fought with a precision and coordination that our troops struggle to match." "How do you achieve such teamwork without telepathic links?" Marcus smiled. "Training, mostly, and something we call trust. Each soldier knows that every other soldier will do their job. We don't need to read each other's minds because we understand each other's thinking. This is difficult for us to comprehend. Zephyrian troops require constant communication to coordinate effectively. Your soldiers seem to know instinctively what to do. Maybe that's because we've been fighting wars longer than anyone else. In the galaxy, humans have been perfecting warfare for thousands of years. We've learned to work together in ways that don't require technology." As they walked back to the landing zone, Kefvara realized that the humans had brought more than just different weapons to this battle. They had brought a different way of thinking about combat itself. The Empire's military doctrine was based on superior technology and overwhelming firepower. The humans had won through simplicity, adaptability, and teamwork. News of the victory at Altair Prime spread quickly through the galaxy. For the first time since the war began, the Empire had won a decisive battle against the Sectar. But more importantly, they had learned that there were other ways to fight. Ways that did not depend on having the most advanced technology or the most powerful weapons. Sometimes the oldest methods were also the most effective methods. And sometimes the primitives knew things that the advanced civilizations had forgotten. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The impossible had happened. The Sectar had been defeated. Not by superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but by crude weapons and simple tactics. Within days of the victory at Altair Prime, representatives from dozens of species were requesting meetings with human officials. Everyone wanted to understand how the primitives had accomplished what advanced civilizations could not. Dr. Velther found himself busier than ever. His laboratory on the capital world of Zephyria Prime was filled with alien scientists from across the Empire. They all wanted to study human technology and learn its secrets. "The projectile weapons are fascinating," said Dr. Heltar, a scientist from the aquatic Velinary species. Her water-filled suit bubbled as she spoke. "We have been using energy weapons for so long that we forgot physical projectiles could be effective." "It is more than just the weapons," replied Dr. Bixtral, whose insectoid species had compound eyes and multiple arms. "The humans coordinate their actions without any technological assistance. How is this possible?" Velther looked at the data they had collected from human colonies. The more they studied, the more questions arose. "I have been examining their medical technology," he said. They use chemical compounds to treat diseases, simple molecules that interfere with biological processes. Our nanomedical systems are far more advanced, yet human medicine is often more effective. How can this be? Asked Heltar. Their medicines are cruder but more reliable. A chemical compound always behaves the same way. Our nanomachines can malfunction or be affected by electromagnetic interference. Human drugs just work. Bickstrau showed them a holographic display of human manufacturing processes. Look at how they build their vehicles. No gravity manipulators or molecular assemblers. They cut metal pieces and weld them together by hand. Yet their vehicles last longer than ours. Because they understand the materials completely, Velther explained. We use exotic alloys and smart materials that we do not fully comprehend. Humans use simple metals that they know inside and out. They can predict exactly how their materials will behave under stress. The scientists spent hours discussing these paradoxes. Every example of human technology revealed the same pattern, simple methods that worked better than complex alternatives. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other species were making their own discoveries about humanity. On the world of Cretanto, the hive-minded Zelenari were studying human military tactics. Queen Prime Zixara watched recordings of the Altair Prime battle with fascination. The individual human soldiers make decisions independently, she observed to her subordinates. They do not wait for orders from a central command. How do they coordinate their actions? Sub-Queen Villana displayed tactical analyses on the chamber walls. Each soldier seems to understand the overall mission and adapts their behavior accordingly. They respond to changing conditions faster than our hive mind can process new information. But this is impossible. Individual minds cannot coordinate as efficiently as a collective consciousness. Yet the evidence is clear. Human soldiers work together more effectively than our drones. They anticipate each other's actions and cover each other's weaknesses without direct communication. Queen Prime Zixara was disturbed by this revelation. The Zelenari had always believed that hive minds were superior to individual consciousness. Their entire civilization was based on this principle. Perhaps, Sub-Queen Villana suggested carefully, individual minds have advantages we have not considered. On the energy world of Lamtara, the incorporeal Luminari were equally puzzled by human medicine. Medical Prime Shuvith studied reports from human hospitals with growing amazement. They insert foreign chemicals into their bodies, she transmitted to her colleagues. Substances that would be toxic in large quantities. Yet these poisons cure diseases that our light therapy cannot touch. How is this possible? Asked Healer Second Nethfiel. The chemicals target specific biological processes. They are crude and sometimes dangerous, but they are also precise. Our light-based treatments are gentle and safe, but they cannot affect some deep-seated conditions. Are you suggesting that primitive medicine is superior to our advanced techniques? Not superior, different. The humans found solutions to problems we did not know existed. Similar conversations were happening throughout the galaxy. Every species was discovering that their advanced technology had blind spots, problems that human primitive methods could solve. More effectively, Dr. Velther was trying to understand the bigger picture. He had collected data from dozens of species and hundreds of human colonies. Slowly, a pattern was emerging. He called a meeting of the Empire's top scientists and military leaders. The conference room was packed with representatives from across known space. Colleagues, he began, I believe I understand why human technology is so effective. It is not because they are more advanced than us. It is because they developed along a completely different path. He activated a holographic display showing technological development trees for various species. Every known civilization has followed a similar pattern. First, they master energy manipulation. They learn to use plasma, quantum fields, and exotic particles. Then they develop biotechnology or nanotechnology. Finally, they achieve dimensional physics and reality manipulation. The display showed branching paths, but all of them led in the same general direction, toward increasingly complex and exotic technologies. Humans are different. They never had access to exotic materials or energy sources. Their world contained only common elements: iron, carbon, silicon, and a few others. So they learned to use these basic materials in ways we never imagined. A new branch appeared on the display, showing human technological development. Instead of reaching toward exotic physics, it went deeper into fundamental principles. Where we use plasma containment, they use controlled explosions. Where we use gravity manipulation, they use mechanical force. Where we use quantum computers, they use electrical circuits. Every solution is based on basic physics that we learned and then abandoned. General Morvik leaned forward. Doctor, basic physics has limitations. There are problems that can only be solved with advanced technology. Are you certain? Velthur challenged. Humans have found basic solutions to problems we thought required advanced technology. Their projectile weapons defeat energy shields. Their chemical medicine cures diseases our nanosystems cannot touch. Their mechanical computers process information more reliably than our quantum systems. He changed the display to show comparative analyzes. We assumed that more advanced meant better. But humans proved that more reliable often beats more sophisticated. Their crude technology works in situations where our refined systems fail. Dr. Heltar raised a tentacle. What about their coordination abilities? How do they work together so effectively without technological assistance? That is perhaps their greatest achievement, Velthur replied. We use telepathy, hive minds, or computer networks to coordinate group behavior. Humans develop something else. They learn to predict each other's actions based on shared training and experience. You mean they can read minds? Not exactly. They can read intentions and emotions from subtle physical cues, body language, vocal tones, facial expressions. They communicate constantly at a subconscious level. The room was silent as everyone absorbed this information. Furthermore, Velthur continued, humans train extensively for teamwork. They practice working together until it becomes instinctive. Their military units spend months learning to function as a single organism, but without losing individual creativity. This gives them advantages we never considered. A hive mind is efficient but predictable. Individual minds working together are chaotic but adaptable. Humans can change tactics instantly while maintaining coordination. Emperor Zarthik had been listening quietly. Now he spoke up. Dr. Velthur, what you are describing sounds like humans evolved to solve problems differently than every other species. Is this correct? Yes, Your Majesty. Every other species had access to exotic resources or special abilities. Energy beings like the Luminari naturally developed energy-based technology. Hive minds like the Zelenari naturally developed collective solutions. We Zephyrians had access to quantum crystals, so we developed quantum technology. Humans had none of these advantages. They were forced to work with common materials and individual minds. So they became incredibly good at using basic physics and individual cooperation. The result is technology that looks primitive but works extraordinarily well. They mastered the fundamentals so thoroughly that their simple solutions often outperform our complex ones. The implications were staggering. For thousands of years, galactic civilization had assumed that technological advancement meant increasing complexity. The discovery of humanity proved that this was not the only path. What does this mean for the Empire? Asked Defense Minister Kalanova. It means we need to reconsider everything, Velthur replied. Our technology is not necessarily better than human technology. It is just different. In some situations, human methods work better. We should study their approaches and integrate them with our own. Use kinetic weapons alongside energy weapons. Employ chemical medicine alongside nanomedical systems. Train our troops in human coordination techniques. General Morvek nodded slowly. The war against the Sektar proved this. Our advanced weapons were useless against their biotechnology. Human primitive weapons worked perfectly. It is not that human technology is primitive, Velthur corrected. It is that human technology is fundamental. They built everything. on basic principles that never change. Energy shields can be adapted to stop energy weapons, but they cannot violate the laws of physics to stop a piece of metal moving at high speed. Biological computers can evolve to resist electronic viruses, but they cannot escape the rules of logic that govern all information processing. Humans found the unchanging principles underneath all technology. That is why their solutions work against enemies that have adapted to conventional methods. The meeting continued for hours as the implications became clear. Humanity had not failed to achieve advanced technology, they had succeeded in perfecting basic technology. And in a galaxy where everyone else had moved beyond the basics that made them incredibly valuable allies, the Empire began implementing new policies. Immediately, human technical advisors were assigned to every military unit. Scientists from across the galaxy traveled to human colonies to learn their methods. Most importantly, the Empire's universities began teaching courses in fundamental engineering. The human approach to solving problems with basic physics and simple materials, Dr. Velther, returned to his laboratory with a new understanding of technology and progress. For years, he had believed that advancement meant complexity. Now he realized that true advancement meant effectiveness. Humans had taught the galaxy that sometimes the most sophisticated solution was also the simplest one, and sometimes the most primitive methods were actually the most advanced. 2 years had passed since the first contact with humanity. The galaxy looked very different now. Admiral Sarah Chun, formerly Captain Chen, stood on the bridge of the new flagship Unity. The ship was a marvel of cooperation. Human kinetic weapons, mounted alongside Zephyrian energy shields, luminary healing bays next to human medical stations, and zelenary coordination systems working with human tactical computers. "Admiral," called her communications officer, "we're receiving the final reports from the hybrid fleet exercises." "Let me hear them," the officer read from the screen. "All vessels report successful integration of human and alien technologies. The Zephyrian crews have mastered kinetic weapon systems. Human crews are operating quantum shields effectively. No major compatibility issues." Sarah smiled. It had taken 2 years of hard work, but the various species were finally learning to combine their technologies effectively. "What about the ground forces?" "Even better news. The joint training program has exceeded all expectations. Zelenary drones working with human squads show improved performance over either group alone. The luminary energy healers and human field medics make an incredibly effective medical team." Admiral Kefvara entered the bridge. Her crystal skin had returned to its normal blue color, no longer dark with stress. The war with the Sector was over, and the Empire was stronger than ever. "Admiral Chun," she said formally, then smiled. "Sarah, are you ready for the ceremony?" "As ready as anyone can be for something like this." Today was the inauguration of the Galactic Technology Exchange, a new organization dedicated to sharing knowledge between species. It was humanity's idea, but every major civilization had agreed to participate. The ceremony was being held on Nexus Station, a massive space facility built using combined technologies from dozens of species. The station itself was proof of what cooperation could achieve. Human structural engineering supported by Zephyrian energy systems, with living biocomponents from reformed Sector colonies. Yes, even the Sector had joined the alliance. After their defeat, many of their worlds had sued for peace. They had been amazed to learn that the primitive humans were willing to help them develop defensive technologies instead of conquest weapons. As Sarah and Kefvara walked through the station, they passed examples of the new hybrid technologies. Everywhere. In the engineering section, human mechanics worked alongside luminary energy specialists to maintain fusion reactors that used both chemical and quantum processes. The reactors were more reliable than pure quantum systems, but more efficient than pure chemical systems. In the medical bay, zelenary biospecialists collaborated with human doctors to develop treatments that combined nanotechnology with traditional chemistry. Patients could receive the benefits of both approaches. In the computer center, Human programmers worked with various AI systems to create networks that used both quantum processing and classical logic. The result was computing power that was both incredibly fast and completely reliable. "It is remarkable," Kefvara observed. 2 years ago, we would have considered most of these combinations impossible." "Not impossible," Sarah replied. "Just unlikely. Nobody thought to try mixing basic and advanced approaches before." They reached the main auditorium, where representatives from over 50 species had gathered. Emperor Zarthik was there, along with Queen Prime Zixara, Medical Prime Shuvith, and hundreds of other leaders. Dr. Velther stepped up to the podium to address the assembly. "Friends and colleagues," he began, "we are here today to celebrate a new era of cooperation. But more than that, we are here to acknowledge a fundamental change in how we think about technology and progress." The audience listened intently. Velther had become famous throughout the galaxy for his studies of human technology. For thousands of years, each species has developed technology in isolation. We assumed that our way was the best way, or even the only way. The arrival of humanity has taught us otherwise. He activated a holographic display showing technological trees from various civilizations. "We now understand that there are many paths to solving the same problems. Energy weapons and kinetic weapons both have their place. Quantum computers and classical computers both have advantages. Individual coordination and hive minds both have strengths. The key is not to choose one approach over another, but to understand when each approach works best." Dr. Velther gestured toward the mixed audience. "Today, we establish the technology exchange to formalize this cooperation. Scientists from every species will work together to develop hybrid solutions that combine the best of all approaches." The ceremony continued with speeches from various leaders. Each one emphasized the same themes: cooperation, diversity of thought, and the value of different perspectives. But the real celebration began when the emergency alarms started ringing. Sarah rushed to the nearest command center, followed by Kefvara and several other military officers. The duty officer, a young Zephyrian, looked terrified. "Report," Sarah demanded. "Admiral, we're receiving distress calls from the Outer Rim. Unknown vessels are attacking our colonies. The ships are ... unlike anything we've seen before." The main screen showed sensor readings from the attacked worlds. The enemy vessels appeared to be made of pure energy, constantly shifting and changing shape. They absorbed all forms of matter they encountered, growing larger with each planet they consumed. "Energy vampires," whispered Kefvara. "I have heard legends of such beings, but I thought they were myths." "How many ships?" Sarah asked. "Unknown. They appear to be individual entities rather than constructed vessels. We estimate at least 50, possibly hundreds." Sarah studied the readings. These creatures consumed energy in all forms: electromagnetic radiation, thermal energy, even the energy that held atoms together. They were the ultimate predator, capable of draining entire solar systems. "What weapons are effective against them?" "None that we know of, Admiral. Energy weapons feed them. Kinetic weapons pass right through them. They exist in a state between matter and energy." The assembled leaders had gathered in the command center. Emperor Zarthik looked grim. "How long before they reach the core worlds?" "At their current rate of expansion, 3 weeks." Sarah looked around the room at the frightened faces. Then she began to smile. "Why are you smiling?" Kefvara asked. "This may be the end of galactic civilization." "Because," Sarah replied, "we're thinking about this all wrong. Everyone is asking what weapons can destroy these creatures. But that's not the right question. What is the right question? The right question is, what do these creatures need to survive?" Dr. Velther understood immediately. "Energy. They consume energy to maintain their existence." "Exactly. And what happens if they can't find any energy to consume? They would starve?" Sarah nodded. "We can't destroy them with weapons, but we don't need to. We just need to remove their food source." She turned to the assembled leaders. We're going to do something that no advanced civilization has ever attempted. We're going to go primitive. Completely primitive. I do not understand, said Emperor Zarthik. We're going to shut down every energy source in the threatened systems. No plasma reactors, no quantum generators, no energy weapons. We'll use only mechanical systems, diesel engines, steam power, chemical batteries. But that would cripple our technology, not all of it. Humans have been building effective technology without exotic energy sources for centuries. We can do it again. Sarah called up tactical displays showing the threatened sectors. We evacuate the populations using mechanical transport. We power our ships with combustion engines and chemical rockets. We arm them with kinetic weapons and explosive warheads. No energy signatures for the creatures to track or consume. Once the energy vampires enter a dead system with no energy to consume, they'll weaken. Then we hit them with old-fashioned firepower, bullets, bombs, and missiles. The plan was audacious and seemingly impossible, but over the next few days it began to take shape. Human engineers worked around the clock to retrofit alien ships with primitive propulsion systems. Zephyrian vessels had their quantum drives replaced with chemical rockets. Luminari ships were equipped with diesel generators instead of energy taps. The most difficult challenge was convincing advanced species to trust primitive technology. Many had not used combustion engines or chemical power in thousands of years. But human technical advisors were everywhere, teaching alien crews how to maintain and operate the simple systems. Remember, human mechanics told nervous Zephyrian engineers, these engines are not sophisticated, but they are reliable. Keep the fuel flowing, watch the temperature gauges, and they will work. Meanwhile, weapons specialists worked to convert energy-based armaments to kinetic systems. Plasma cannons were replaced with railguns. Particle beam arrays became missile launchers. The most important change was in the crews themselves. Species that had relied on technological aids for everything had to learn to work manually. Gravity boots instead of artificial gravity, mechanical controls instead of neural interfaces, chemical lights instead of energy illumination. 3 weeks later, the primitive fleet was ready. Admiral Chun commanded the operation from the bridge of a converted Zephyrian dreadnought. The ship looked crude now, with external fuel tanks and mechanical gun turrets bolted to its hull. But it was also completely invisible to energy-sensitive creatures. All ships report ready, her communications officer announced. He was using a simple radio instead of quantum entanglement communication. The energy vampires have entered the Kepler system. Begin the operation. The primitive fleet moved toward the invaded system using chemical propulsion. Their engines burned hydrocarbons and produced simple thrust, leaving no exotic energy signatures. When they arrived, they found the energy vampires in a feeding frenzy. The creatures had drained 2 planets completely, reducing them to cold rocks floating in space. The creatures themselves had grown enormous, some reaching the size of small moons. But they were also confused. For the first time in their existence, they could find no energy to consume. The system was completely dead, no reactor signatures, no quantum fields, no electromagnetic emissions beyond natural stellar radiation. Sensors show the creatures are weakening, reported the science officer. They're beginning to collapse into more solid forms. All ships commence firing. The primitive fleet unleashed everything they had. Kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives, and simple missiles streaked toward the energy vampires. For the first time, the creatures could not absorb the attacks. Solid matter struck solid matter, causing real damage. The battle was brief but decisive. Without energy to sustain them, the vampires could not maintain their ethereal forms. They solidified into vulnerable targets that primitive weapons could destroy. Within hours, the threat was over. News of the victory spread quickly throughout the galaxy. Once again, primitive human technology had saved advanced civilizations from destruction. But more importantly, the battle had proven the value of the new cooperative approach. No single species could have developed the solution alone. It required human knowledge of primitive technology, Zephyrian manufacturing capabilities, luminary energy expertise, and zelenary coordination. Admiral Chung returned to Nexus Station as a hero. The technology exchange was no longer just a good idea, it was essential for galactic survival. Dr. Velther met her at the docking bay. "Admiral, you have done it again. You have found a simple solution to an impossible problem." "Not just me, Doctor. All of us working together. That's the real lesson here." "What do you mean?" "For too long, every species tried to solve problems alone using their own preferred methods. We assumed that more advanced was always better. But sometimes the old ways work best. And sometimes you need to combine old and new to create something even better." Sarah looked around at the mixed crews working on the station, humans alongside aliens. Primitive tools next to advanced systems, all working together toward common goals. "The galaxy is changing, Doctor. We're learning that diversity of thought is our greatest strength. Not just diversity of species, but diversity of approaches to solving problems." "Are you saying that primitive technology is superior to advanced technology?" "No. I'm saying that every technology has its place. The trick is knowing when to use which approach." Sarah walked toward the administrative section of the station, where the technology exchange would begin its work of cataloging and sharing knowledge from across the galaxy. "We've learned something important over the past 2 years. Human technology works not because it's primitive, but because it's based on unchanging physical laws. Energy weapons can be countered, but kinetic energy is forever. Quantum computers can be hacked, but simple logic is universal. The creatures we just defeated prove this point. They had evolved to consume all forms of exotic energy. But they couldn't handle simple chemical explosions and mechanical impacts." "So what happens now?" Dr. Velther asked. "Now we get to work. We have a galaxy full of species with different approaches to solving problems. Some think in terms of energy, others in terms of biology, still others in terms of quantum mechanics. Humans think in terms of basic physics. By combining all these approaches, we can create solutions that no single species could develop alone." Sarah paused at the entrance to the Technology Exchange headquarters. "That's the real revolution, Doctor. Not that human technology is better than alien technology, but that all technologies are better when they work together. We're not just sharing information anymore. We're creating entirely new ways of thinking about science and engineering." Dr. Velther nodded slowly. "A new paradigm." "Exactly. One where the question isn't, what's the most advanced solution, but what's the most effective solution? And sometimes the most effective solution is also the simplest one." As they entered the building, Sarah could see the future stretching ahead. A galaxy where species worked together instead of competing, where diversity was celebrated instead of feared, where problems were solved using the best ideas from everywhere, regardless of how primitive or advanced they seemed. The humans had given the galaxy something more valuable than weapons or technology. They had given them a new way of thinking. And that, Sarah realized, was the greatest gift of all. In the years that followed, the technology exchange would revolutionize galactic civilization. Hybrid technologies would solve problems that had puzzled scientists for millennia. Cooperative approaches would prevent conflicts before they started. But the most important change was philosophical. The galaxy had learned that there was no single path to progress. Every species, every culture, every world had something valuable to contribute. Human technology worked not because it was primitive, but because it was different. And in a universe full of infinite challenges, having different approaches was the key to survival. The age of technological isolation was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And at the center of it all were the humans, the species that had taught the galaxy that sometimes the old ways were not just good enough. Sometimes they were better. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her ship, looking out at the bright colors of the Helix Nebula. The gas clouds moved slowly through space like paint mixing in water. Red mixed with blue, green swirled with gold. It was beautiful. But Sarah had work to do. The Wanderer's dream was not a big ship. It was built for exploring, not fighting. Sarah's crew was small too. Only 12 people worked on the ship. They were scientists, engineers, and a few guards. They came to this part of space to study old ruins left behind by dead civilizations. "Captain, we found something," said Dr. Martinez from his station. He was the team's expert on old alien technology. His eyes were bright with excitement. "There's a structure on the planet below. It's huge and very old." Sarah looked at the screen. The planet was gray and empty. No life grew there anymore. But on the surface, she could see the outline of something. Big, it looked like a city, but the buildings were strange shapes that humans never built. "How old?" Sarah asked. "Maybe 10,000 years?" "Maybe more," Martinez said. "The energy readings are very weak, but they're still there. Something is still working down there." Sarah felt excited, too. Finding working technology from dead aliens was rare. It could teach them many things about the galaxy's history. "Take us down," she ordered. The ship's pilot, Lieutenant Park, was good at his job. He flew the Wanderer's Dream through the planet's thin atmosphere. The ship landed near the ruins without any problems. Sarah put on her spacesuit and led a small team to explore. The ruins were even more amazing up close. The buildings were made of a metal that still looked new after thousands of years. Strange. Symbols covered the walls. They glowed with a soft blue light. "This is incredible," whispered Dr. Kim, the team's language expert. She was taking pictures of the symbols. "I've never seen writing like this before." They walked deeper into the ruins. In the center they found a tall tower. It was perfectly round and reached high into the sky. At the bottom was a door, but it was sealed shut. "Can we get inside?" Sarah asked. Martinez ran his scanner over the door. "There's a control panel here. It's still active." He looked at Sarah. "Should I try to open it?" Sarah thought for a moment. They were in unknown space, far from any human colony. But they came here to explore and learn. "Do it, but be careful." Martinez touched his tools to the control panel. Lights started flashing. The door began to open with a deep humming sound. Cool air flowed out from inside the tower. "The atmosphere is safe," Martinez said, checking his scanner. They walked inside. The tower was hollow, with stairs going up. Along the walls, in the center, was a strange machine. It looked like a crystal tree made of metal and light. It was beautiful and scary at the same time. "What do you think it is?" Sarah asked. "Some kind of beacon, maybe," Martinez said. "Or a communication device." Kim was studying the symbols on the walls. "These markings talk about sending messages to the stars. I think this was used to contact other worlds." Sarah walked closer to the machine. As she got near, it started to glow brighter. The crystals began to spin slowly. A low sound filled the air, like music, but not quite. "Captain, I'm getting energy readings," Martinez said. His voice sounded worried. "The machine is powering up. Should we leave?" Park asked. He was nervous about alien technology. Sarah watched the machine. It was beautiful, but she could feel power building inside it. "Everyone back to the ship, now!" They ran from the tower. Behind them, the machine's light got brighter and brighter. Just as they reached their ship, a beam of light shot up from the tower into space. It was so bright it hurt to look at. "What did we do?" Kim asked. "I don't know," Sarah said, "but we need to leave, fast." Park started the engines. The Wanderer's Dream lifted off and flew away from the planet. Sarah looked back and saw the light. Beam still shooting into space. It pulsed like a heartbeat. "Captain," called Johnson from the communication station. "I'm picking up a signal." "It's very strong and getting stronger." "What kind of signal?" "It's not human." "The pattern is complex. It's like someone is answering the beacon." Sarah felt cold fear in her stomach. "How far away?" Johnson worked at his controls. His face went pale. "Close, very close. There are ships coming out of hyperspace." On the main screen, Sarah saw a space tier open like cloth. Ships came through the tier. Not one or two, but many. They were big ships, built for war. Their hulls were black metal covered in spikes and weapons. 20 ships, Park said. "No, 30. They keep coming." Sarah had never seen ships like these before. They looked like metal sharks, hungry and dangerous. Red lights glowed on their sides like angry eyes. "Can we run?" Sarah asked. "Already trying," Park said. His hands moved fast over the controls. "But they're faster than us." A voice came over the communication system. It was deep and harsh, speaking in a language Sarah didn't know, but the ship's computer translated into English. "Unknown vessel. You have activated a sacred beacon of the Zephyrian Dominion. This is an act of war. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Sarah's blood felt like ice. She had heard of the Zephyrian Dominion. They were one of the most dangerous alien races in the galaxy. They loved war and conquered other species for fun. They were cruel and showed no mercy. "This is Commander Sarah Chun of the human exploration vessel Wanderer's Dream," she said into the communicator. "We meant no harm. We were just exploring old ruins." "We didn't know the beacon was yours," the alien voice spoke again. "Ignorance is not an excuse. You have violated Dominion space and activated military equipment. Surrender your ship and crew. For questioning, refuse and you will be hunted down and killed." Sarah looked at her crew. They were scared, but they trusted her to make the right choice. She knew what happened to prisoners of the Zephyrian Dominion. They were tortured for information, then killed slowly for entertainment. "We cannot surrender," Sarah said. "But we offer to pay for any damage and leave your space immediately." The alien laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. "You think you can negotiate? You are insects. Your ship is a toy. Surrender now or face the full power of Battlefleet Terminus." More ships kept coming through the hyperspace tier. Sarah counted 50, then 70, then 100. They were all warships, each one 10 times bigger than her small exploration vessel. "Captain, what are your orders?" Park asked. Sarah looked at the screen full of enemy ships. Her small crew waited for her decision. She thought about her family. Back on Earth, she thought about all the humans living on colonies across space. If she surrendered, the Zephyrians would learn about human settlements. They might attack innocent people. "We run," Sarah said. "All power to engines." Park pushed the engines to maximum. The Wanderer's Dream shot forward, racing away from the alien fleet. Behind them, red laser beams cut through space where they had been just seconds before. "They're following us," Johnson said. "All of them." Sarah watched the rear screen. The entire Zephyrian fleet was chasing her small ship. It looked like a pack of wolves chasing a rabbit. But Sarah was not going to give up easily. "How many ships?" she asked. Johnson counted the signals on his screen. 200. Maybe more. 200 warships against one exploration vessel. Sarah's crew looked at her with fear and hope mixed together. They knew the odds were impossible, but they also knew their captain would not quit. "Captain," Martinez said quietly, "why are they sending so many ships for just us?" Sarah understood. The Zephyrians were not just hunting them. They were making a show of power. They wanted the galaxy to see what happened to anyone who crossed the Dominion, even by accident. "They want to make an example of us," Sarah said. "Show everyone that the Dominion is strong." Kim looked scared. "What do we do?" Sarah set her jaw and looked at the fleet chasing them. "We survive. We make them work for it. And maybe, if we're lucky, we get word back to Earth about what happened here." The chase began. One small human ship against an entire alien armada. Sarah knew they couldn't win, but she also knew they had to try. Her crew was depending on her. Humanity was depending on her. "All hands prepare for evasive maneuvers," Sarah announced over the ship's speakers. "This is going to be a long day." The Wanderer's Dream raced through space with 200 enemy ships behind it. The hunt had begun, and Sarah Chun was not going to make it easy for them. The Wanderer's Dream flew through space faster than it was ever meant to go. Behind it, 200 Zephyrian warships followed like a dark cloud of death. Sarah stood on the bridge, watching the enemy fleet on her screens. They were getting closer. "How much time do we have?" Sarah asked. Lieutenant Park was sweating as he worked the controls. "At this speed, maybe 6 hours before they catch us?" "But the engines can't take this much longer." Sarah nodded. 6 hours was not much time, but it was something. Take us to the Kronos system. There are asteroids there we can hide in. Yes, Captain, Park said. He changed course toward the nearby star system. On the enemy flagship, Admiral Kethver watched the human ship on his own screens. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and yellow eyes. His uniform was covered in medals from past battles. He had conquered 12 worlds for the Dominion. Crushing one small human ship would be easy, Admiral, said his communications officer. Should we contact the homeworld about the hunt? Kethver smiled, showing sharp teeth. Yes, broadcast everything. I want the whole galaxy to watch as we destroy these insects. Let every species see what happens when they cross the Dominion. The officer began sending the signal. Across Zephyrian space, people watched the chase on their screens. The news spread to other worlds, too. Many species had been attacked by the Zephyrians before. They watched to see if the humans would fight or just give up. Sarah felt the ship shake as Park pushed the engines harder. How are we doing back there? She called to Martinez in the engine room. Not good, Martinez answered over the comm. The engines are running too hot. If we keep this up, they'll explode. Can you fix it? I can try, but I need time. Sarah looked at the enemy fleet on her screen. They were still far away, but getting closer every minute. You have 1 hour, make it count. In the engine room, Martinez and his team worked as fast as they could. They took apart parts of the engine and put them back together in new ways. They used tools that were never meant for this kind of work. Sweat dripped from their faces as they raced against time. Dr. Kim was at her station, trying to learn more about their enemies. Captain, I've been studying their language. I think I understand how they think. Tell me, Sarah said. They see this as a game. To them, we're not people. We're just prey to be hunted. They think it's fun. Sarah felt anger burn in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. Then we'll show them that prey can bite back. The Wanderer's dream reached the Kronos system and flew into the asteroid field. Huge rocks floated in space, some as big as cities. Park flew the ship between them, using the asteroids to hide from the enemy sensors. Good thinking, Sarah said. Can they find us here? Johnson was watching his instruments. Their scanners are having trouble. The metal in these rocks blocks their signals. For a moment, Sarah felt hope. Maybe they could hide until the enemy gave up and went away. But then she saw lights moving between the asteroids. The Zephyrian ships were coming into the field, too. They're not giving up, Park said. Admiral Kethver stood on his bridge, watching his ship spread out through the asteroid field. Search every rock, he ordered. The humans cannot hide from us forever. His ships moved slowly through the field, checking behind every asteroid. They used powerful scanners and bright lights to look for the human ship. It was like a deadly game of hide and seek. The Wanderer's dream sat quiet behind a large asteroid. Sarah had ordered all systems shut down except life support. The ship was almost invisible, but she knew it wouldn't last long. Captain, whispered Johnson. 3 enemy ships are coming this way. Sarah watched the screen. The alien ships were searching carefully, moving from rock to rock. They were only a few minutes away from finding the Wanderer's dream. Martinez, how are those engines? Sarah asked quietly. Almost done, came the reply. Give me 2 more minutes. Sarah looked at the enemy ships. They would be here in 1 minute. We don't have 2 minutes. She made a quick decision. Park, start the engines. Johnson, send a signal on all frequencies. Make it loud. What kind of signal? Johnson asked. Music. Send them human music. Johnson looked confused but did what she ordered. The sound of classical music began broadcasting from their ship. It was beautiful and peaceful, very different from the harsh voices of the Zephyrians. The 3 enemy ships heard the signal and turned toward them. Their weapons began charging with red light. Now! Sarah shouted. Park started the engines and the Wanderer's dream shot out from behind the asteroid. The enemy ships fired, but they missed. Red laser beams hit the rock where the human ship had been hiding. The Wanderer's dream flew through the asteroid field as fast as it could. Behind it, the 3 Zephyrian ships gave chase. More enemy ships heard the noise and came to join the hunt. Why did you do that? Park asked as he flew between the floating rocks. Now they know where we are. Look at your scanner, Sarah said. Park looked and his eyes went wide. While the enemy ships were chasing them, they had crashed into several asteroids. The rocks were harder than the alien ships expected. 2 of the enemy vessels were badly damaged. They don't know this field like we do, Sarah explained. They're too big and too confident. We can use that against them. The Wanderer's dream led more enemy ships into the dangerous part of the field. Park flew between rocks that were very close together. The bigger alien ships had trouble following. Some of them hit the asteroids and got damaged. Others had to slow down to avoid crashing, but there were too many of them. Even if some ships got damaged, there were always more coming. The Wanderer's dream could not hide in the asteroid field forever. Captain, we need to leave, Park said. They're surrounding us. Sarah saw he was right. Enemy ships were coming from all directions. Soon they would be trapped. Take us out of the field. Head for the Gamma Nebula. The Wanderer's dream flew out of the asteroids and back into open space. The damaged Zephyrian ships stayed behind, but the rest of the fleet followed. The chase continued. Admiral Kethver was angry. The humans had damaged 6 of his ships and made him look foolish. He spoke to his fleet over the radio. No more games, he said in his harsh voice. Destroy those asteroids, all of them. The Zephyrian ships fired their biggest weapons at the asteroid field. Huge rocks exploded into dust and smaller pieces. In a few minutes, the entire field was gone. The Admiral wanted to make sure no one else could use it to hide from him. Sarah watched the destruction on her rear screen. The beautiful asteroid field was now just empty space filled with dust. The Zephyrians had destroyed it just to show their power. They're monsters, Kim said quietly. Yes, Sarah agreed. But monsters can be beaten, we just have to be smarter than them. The Wanderer's dream reached the Gamma Nebula, a huge cloud of gas and dust between the stars. Park flew the ship into the colorful mist. Inside the nebula, it was hard to see and sensors didn't work well. This should slow them down, Sarah said, but the Zephyrians had fought in nebulas before. They knew how to hunt in the thick gas clouds. They spread their ships out in a wide line and moved forward slowly, searching for any sign of the human vessel. Martinez finally got the engines fixed, but the ship was running out of fuel. They had been flying at maximum speed for hours. Soon they would have to stop whether they wanted to or not. How much fuel do we have left? Sarah asked. Enough for maybe 2 more hours at this speed, Martinez reported. After that, we're dead in space. Sarah felt the weight of command on her shoulders. Her crew was looking at her for answers, but she was running out of ideas. They had fought bravely. But 12 people in one small ship could not beat 200 warships forever. The enemy ships were getting closer in the nebula. Their sensors had found the Wanderer's dream's trail. It was only a matter of time before they were caught. Captain, Johnson said, I'm picking up something strange. What kind of strange? There's a signal coming from deep in the nebula. It's very weak, but it's definitely artificial. Sarah looked at the scanner. There was something out there in the gas cloud, something that wasn't natural. Could be another beacon, or maybe a ship. Should we investigate? Sarah thought about it. They were being hunted by an entire fleet. Going deeper into the nebula might trap them, but it might also lead to something that could help them. Do it, she decided. We don't have many options left. The Wanderer's dream flew deeper into the colorful mist of the nebula. The gas was so thick now that they could barely see anything outside, but the strange signal was getting stronger. Behind them, the Zephyrian ships followed. Admiral Kethver was getting impatient. The hunt had gone on too long. His superiors were asking questions about why it was taking so long to catch one small ship. Find them, he ordered his captains. I don't care what it takes. Find them and destroy them. The alien ships spread out through the nebula, searching every cloud of gas. They were like sharks smelling blood in the water. They knew their prey was nearby. Deep in the nebula, the Wanderer's dream found the source of the signal. It was a space station, very old and obviously abandoned. But some of its systems were still working, sending out the weak signal they had detected. "What is this place?" Kim asked. Sarah studied the station on her screen. It was built by aliens, but not Zephyrians. The design was different, more elegant. Some kind of research station, maybe, or a listening post? "Captain, I'm detecting weapons on that station," Johnson reported. "Old ones, but they might still work." Sarah felt a spark of hope. "Can we control them?" Martinez was already working on the problem. "Maybe. The station's computer systems are very old, but I think I can interface with them. Do it fast." "We don't have much time." The Zephyrian ships were getting closer. Their lights could be seen through the gas clouds. In a few minutes, they would find the Wanderer's dream. Martinez worked frantically at his controls. Ancient alien computers were hard to understand, but he was one of the best engineers in the human fleet. Slowly, he began to make contact with the station's systems. "I'm in," he said. "The station has 6 plasma cannons. They're old but functional. Can you fire them?" "Working on it." The first Zephyrian ship came around a gas cloud and saw the Wanderer's dream floating near the old station. The alien captain smiled and prepared to fire his weapons. Finally, the hunt was over. But before he could shoot, 6 beams of blue plasma erupted from the ancient station. They hit the Zephyrian ship and cut through its armor like paper. The enemy vessel exploded in a ball of fire. "Yes," Park shouted. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. 1 down, 199 to go. More enemy ships came toward the station, but the old weapons kept firing. The plasma cannons were powerful, much stronger than anything on the Wanderer's dream. 3 more Zephyrian ships were destroyed before the others retreated to a safe distance. Admiral Kethver stared at his screen in rage. 4 of his ships had been destroyed by ancient weapons. The humans had turned the tables on him again. "Bring up the heavy cruisers," he ordered. "Destroy that station." The biggest ships in the Zephyrian fleet moved forward. Their weapons were much more powerful than the old plasma cannons. They fired massive energy beams that tore the ancient station apart. Sarah watched the station explode on her screen. Their temporary advantage was gone. Now they were back where they started, 1 small ship against an entire fleet. But the fight had given her something valuable: time. And it had shown her crew that they could hurt their enemies. They were not helpless prey. They were humans. And humans never gave up without a fight. "Where to now, Captain?" Park asked. Sarah looked at the navigation charts. They were running out of places to hide. She had one more idea, one last desperate plan. "Set course for the Void Sector," she said. Her crew looked at her in surprise. The Void Sector was an empty region of space where nothing lived and no one went. It was dangerous and lifeless. "Captain, there's nothing there," Johnson said. "Exactly," Sarah replied, "and that's where we'll make our stand." The Wanderer's dream flew out of the nebula and headed for the empty darkness of the Void Sector. Behind them, the Zephyrian fleet followed like a dark storm. The final confrontation was coming, and Sarah knew that only one side would survive it. The Void Sector was exactly what its name suggested: empty space where nothing lived and nothing grew. No stars shone here, only the distant light from other galaxies far away. It was cold, dark, and lonely. Perfect for a final battle, the Wanderer's dream limped into the sector with its engines barely working. The ship had been running at maximum power for too long. Parts were breaking down and the crew was exhausted. But they were still alive, still fighting. Sarah stood on the bridge, looking out at the darkness. Behind them, she could see the lights of the Zephyrian fleet. 200 ships, all coming to destroy her small crew. The odds were impossible, but she was not afraid anymore. Fear was a luxury she could not afford. "How are we doing, Martinez?" she asked over the com. "Not good, Captain," came the reply from the engine room. "The main drive is almost dead. We have maybe 1 hour of power left, and that's if we're lucky. Weapons? We have 2 small plasma cannons and some mining charges we use for asteroid work. Against 200 warships, it's not much," Sarah nodded. She had expected this. The Wanderer's dream was never meant to fight wars. It was built to explore new worlds and study ancient ruins, but sometimes explorers had to become warriors. "Dr. Kim," Sarah called, "any luck with those distress signals?" Kim looked up from her station. She had been sending emergency messages into space for hours, hoping someone would hear them. "I've tried every frequency I know. If there are any human ships nearby, they should have heard us by now. And if there aren't," Kim's face was sad, "then we're on our own." Sarah walked to the center of the bridge and looked at her crew. These were good people, scientists, engineers, and explorers who had never expected to die in battle. But they were here with her, ready to fight impossible odds. "Listen to me, all of you," Sarah said. "We knew when we signed up for exploration. Duty that space was dangerous. We just never thought it would be this dangerous." Park managed a weak smile. "That's the understatement of the century, Captain." "The Zephyrians think they've already won," Sarah continued. "They think we're just scared humans who will give up when things get hard. They don't know us very well." Johnson looked at his scanner. "Captain, they're spreading out. Looks like they want to surround us." Sarah looked at the tactical display. The enemy fleet was forming a huge circle around their position. There would be no escape this time. This was where they would make their stand. "All hands, prepare for battle," Sarah announced over the ship's speakers. "We're going to show these aliens what humans are made of." On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Keffer was feeling confident again. The humans had led him on a long chase, but now they were trapped in empty space with nowhere to run. Soon this embarrassing hunt would be over. "Admiral," his communications officer said, "the homeworld wants to speak with you." Keffer walked to his private office and activated the long-range communicator. The face of Supreme Commander Vextar appeared on the screen. Vextar was old and covered in scars from many battles. He did not look happy. "Admiral," Vextar said in his deep voice, "you have been chasing one small ship for almost a day. When will this end?" "Soon, Supreme Commander," Keffer replied. "The humans are trapped. We will destroy them within the hour. See that you do. This hunt has gone on too long. Other species are watching and some are asking questions. End this quickly and completely." "Yes, Supreme Commander." The communication ended and Keffer returned to his bridge. He was angry and embarrassed. A simple mission had turned into a long chase that made him look weak. The humans would pay for that. "All ships, prepare to attack," he ordered. "No survivors. I want that ship turned to dust." Back on the Wanderer's Dream, the crew was getting ready for the battle. Martinez had armed the mining charges and turned them into makeshift bombs. Park was testing the ship's weapons, making sure they would work when needed. Kim was still sending distress signals, hoping for a miracle. "Captain," Johnson said, "they're moving into attack position. All 200 ships." Sarah looked at the screen. The Zephyrian fleet looked like a wall of metal and death surrounding them. Each enemy ship was bigger and more powerful than her. Small vessel. But she had something they did not have, a crew that would never give up. "Attention Zephyrian fleet," Sarah said into the communicator. "This is Commander Sarah Chun of the human exploration vessel Wanderer's Dream." Admiral Keffer's voice came back immediately. "You will surrender now, human. Your ship is surrounded. You cannot escape." "You're right," Sarah said calmly. "We can't escape, but we won't surrender either." There was silence for a moment. Then Keffer laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Do you think you can fight us? Your ship is nothing compared to our fleet." "Maybe," Sarah said. "But you're about to learn something about humans. We don't surrender. We don't give up. We fight until the end. Then you will die. Probably. But we'll make you work for it. And when other humans hear about what happened here, they'll know that we went down fighting. They'll know that the Zephyrian Dominion needs 200 ships to kill 12 people." Sarah could hear the anger in Keffer's voice when he replied, "Your species will learn to fear us. When we find your homeworld, You'll find out that there are millions more like us," Sarah interrupted. "Humans who won't bow down to bullies like you. Good luck with that." She cut the communication before Keffer could reply. Around her, the crew was smiling despite the hopeless situation. Their captain had just told an entire alien fleet that humanity would never surrender. It felt good to be defiant, even in the face of certain death. "All ships attack!" Kethver screamed over the radio. 200 warships opened fire at once. The space around the Wanderer's Dream filled with laser beams and plasma bolts. The small human ship disappeared in a cloud of energy and fire, but when the smoke cleared, the Wanderer's Dream was still there. Park had used every trick he knew to dodge the incoming fire. The ship was damaged, but it was still flying. "Return fire," Sarah ordered. The Wanderer's Dream's small weapons fired back at the huge fleet. The plasma bolts looked like sparks hitting a mountain, but they hit their targets. One Zephyrian ship took damage to its engines and began to drift. "One down," Martinez said with satisfaction. 199 to go, Park added. The battle continued. The human ship was like a small bird fighting a flock of eagles. It twisted and turned, firing whenever it could, always moving to avoid the enemy weapons. But there were too many of them. Slowly, the Wanderer's Dream was taking more and more damage. "Hull breach on Deck 3, Martinez reported. "Ceiling. It now, weapons array is damaged," Johnson added. "We're down to one plasma cannon." Sarah felt the ship shake as another enemy blast hit them. The lights flickered and she could smell smoke in the air. They were losing, but they were not dead. "Yet, use the mining charges," she ordered. "All of them." Martinez launched the converted mining explosives at the closest enemy ships. The charges were not very accurate, but in the middle of such a large fleet, they didn't need to be. 3 of them hit their targets and exploded, damaging several. Zephyrian vessels. Admiral Kethver watched from his flagship as the humans continued to fight. He had expected them to die quickly, but they kept finding ways to hurt his ships. It was impressive and annoying at the same time. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "we've lost 8 ships to damage. The humans are better fighters than expected." "They are still just one ship," Kethver replied. "Keep firing." But privately, he was starting to worry. The hunt had gone on too long, and now the humans were making him look bad in front of his own fleet. His superiors would not be happy if he lost. Many more ships to a single human vessel. On the Wanderer's Dream, the situation was getting desperate. The ship's systems were failing one by one. The engines were barely working, the weapons were almost gone, and there were fires in 3 different sections. "Captain," Kim said suddenly, "I'm getting something on the long-range scanners." "More Zephyrians?" Sarah asked. "No, something else. It's big, and it's coming this way fast." Sarah looked at the scanner display. There was indeed something approaching, but it was still too far away to identify. "How long until it gets here?" 20 minutes, maybe less." Sarah looked around at her damaged bridge. 20 minutes was a long time in a battle like this. She wasn't sure they could last that long. "We need to buy time," she said. "Park, take us closer to their fleet, right into the middle of them." Park stared at her. "Captain, that's suicide." "Maybe, but they won't expect it. And if we're in the middle of their formation, they'll have to be careful about shooting. They might hit their own ships." It was a desperate plan, but Park followed orders. The Wanderer's Dream flew straight at the Zephyrian fleet, dodging laser, fire, and plasma bolts. The enemy ships were so surprised by the bold move that some of them stopped shooting. The human ship flew right between 2 large cruisers, so close that their hulls almost touched. The Zephyrian captains wanted to fire, but they were afraid of hitting each other. "Brilliant," Martinez said. "They can't shoot us without risking their own ships." But the tactic couldn't last long. The enemy ships began to spread out, giving themselves room to fire safely. Soon, the Wanderer's Dream would be trapped in the middle of the fleet with nowhere to go. 10 minutes, Kim reported. "Whatever's coming will be here in 10 minutes. Sarah made a decision. "All power to the communications array. Maximum broadcast." "On all frequencies, Captain?" Johnson asked. "If we're going to die, I want the galaxy to know what happened here. I want them to know that humans don't surrender to bullies." Johnson powered up the communications system and opened a channel on every frequency he could find. Sarah's voice began broadcasting across space, loud enough for anyone with a radio to hear. "This is Commander Sarah Chun of the Human Exploration. Vessel Wanderer's Dream, we are under attack by the Zephyrian Dominion Fleet. 200 ships against 12 people. We did nothing wrong except accidentally activate an old beacon while exploring ruins. Around the galaxy, different species. Heard the transmission. Some were allies of the Zephyrians and ignored it. Others had been attacked by the Dominion before and listened with interest. The Zephyrians demand that we surrender for questioning," Sarah continued. "We know what that means. We know what they do to prisoners, so we choose to fight. We choose to show them that humans will not be victims." The battle continued around them as Sarah spoke. Enemy fire lit up the darkness of space, and the Wanderer's Dream shook with each hit. "We may die here today," Sarah said, "but we want the galaxy to know that we died as free people. We died fighting for the right to explore the stars and learn about the universe. If there are other humans listening, remember us. Remember that we did not surrender." 5 minutes, Kim whispered. Sarah could see that her ship was dying. Systems were failing and the hull was breaking apart. But her crew was still at their stations, still fighting. She was proud of them. "Humanity is new to the galaxy," Sarah broadcast. "We are explorers and scientists, not conquerors. We seek knowledge, not war, but when war comes to us, we will fight. We will always fight."